Deep down, we're all masters of the art of deception. We hide our true intentions behind a mask of likability and vulnerability, using them as tools to lure people into our web of influence. This calculated game of emotional manipulation is woven into the very fabric of human interaction, a pattern that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries. I'm sure you've seen it in someone you love, trust, or even yourself, a person who expertly weaves a narrative of weakness and neediness, only to use it as a means to control and manipulate others. In this series, we'll delve into the darker corners of human psychology, where the uncomfortable truth of attraction and vulnerability becomes a tool for exploitation, and examine the hidden dynamics that keep us stuck in a cycle of emotional gamesmanship. As we peel back the layers of human behavior, we find ourselves confronted with a pattern so insidious. It has become the hallmark of our most intimate relationships. Behind the facade of love and connection, we see a desperate cry for validation, for the reassurance that our very existence is worthy. You see, it's not about being charming or likable. It's about being worthy of attention, of acceptance, and the greatest manipulator is often the one who masquerades as a victim, their insecurity fueling a need for control, a quest for power over others. When we're told we're irresistible, that we're the center of someone's universe, it's often a ruse to keep us in place, to keep us from discovering the truth that our worth is not defined by another person's obsession, but by our own self-worth. But what happens when the mask slips and the true nature of the manipulator is revealed? We see a complex web of fear, of insecurity, of a deep-seated need for control, and a staggering lack of empathy for the pain they've caused. It's a dance of attraction and rejection, where the manipulator uses vulnerability as a tool to gain power, to exploit the very fears and insecurities they've cleverly disguised as love, and we're left wondering, how did we not see it coming? Individuals often resort to charming masks and hidden agendas when their insecurities about themselves or their circumstances are too great to bear, making them desperate for external validation. Their calculated use of attraction and vulnerability is an effective way to disarm others, allowing them to slowly extract what they need from them, whether that be validation, comfort, or even control. On the surface, it may seem like a clever strategy, but in reality, their actions reveal a deep-seated fear of being rejected, abandoned, or unloved, a fear that can only be temporarily alleviated through manipulation. The more they manipulate, the more they become trapped in their own web of deceit, forced to constantly adjust and refine their masks to avoid getting caught, but never truly finding the genuine connections they crave. Their need for control stems from an underlying sense of powerlessness, a feeling that their lives, their emotions, and their choices are being dictated by circumstances beyond their control, and manipulation becomes a means to reassert dominance in a chaotic world. At their core, they are often motivated by a twisted desire for self-deception, convincing themselves that their actions are justified, that they are the true victim in the situation, and that the end justifies the means, no matter how dark or twisted those means may be. When we use attraction and vulnerability as tools to manipulate others, it's essential to recognize that our real motivation isn't love or genuine connection, but rather a desperate attempt to fill the void within ourselves created by unresolved childhood trauma and unmet emotional needs. We're conditioned to believe that if we can just get someone to love or be attracted to us, we'll finally feel seen, heard, and validated. But in reality, this never truly happens because we're using the other person as a means to an end, rather than embracing our own inherent worth. The fine line between genuine vulnerability and calculated manipulation is often crossed when we use our emotional pain as currency to elicit sympathy and comfort from others, rather than taking responsibility for our own healing and growth. We're constantly seeking validation from external sources to compensate for our own perceived inadequacies. But this creates a toxic cycle of codependency and people-pleasing, where we sacrifice our authenticity and individuality in exchange for fleeting moments of approval and affirmation. At its core, our need for attraction and validation is rooted in a fundamental fear of being rejected, abandoned, or unlovable, which is a fear that we often internalize from childhood experiences and relationships. The greatest illusion we create is one of self-deception, where we convince ourselves that our actions and words are motivated by love, care, and compassion, when in reality, we're driven by a primal desire for security, validation, and control. We often mistakenly assume that people are drawn to others based on genuine interest, but in reality, they are usually attracted to the promise of validation, a sense of control, or even the thrill of manipulating someone else's emotions. Behind the charming facade, many individuals use vulnerability as a tactic to garner sympathy, create an emotional connection, and ultimately, gain leverage over others. Insecure people often cloak their insecurities behind a mask of confidence, but in order to compensate for their own feelings of inadequacy, they'll seek control through emotional manipulation, playing the victim, or projecting their own flaws onto others. It's fascinating, but also disturbing, to witness how people use the power of attraction to lure others into a relationship based on mutual infatuation, only to later exploit the emotional vulnerability that has been created. One of the most insidious tactics of manipulators is to make their partners feel responsible for their happiness, creating a toxic dynamic that leaves the victim oscillating between feelings of guilt and shame. What's most striking, however, is how quickly people become self-deceived, blinding themselves to the true nature of their motivations and actions, all in the name of avoiding feelings of rejection, isolation, or inadequacy. As we delve into the world beneath the mask, it becomes clear that our pursuit of connection and validation often masquerades as a genuine desire for love and intimacy. When we use our charm and magnetism to draw others in, we're not just showcasing our authentic selves, but rather, we're carefully curating a persona that elicits a sense of intrigue and desire, all while keeping our true motivations and insecurities hidden. The truth is, our need for validation is a primal drive that fuels our ego, causing us to seek constant reassurance and attention from others, often at the expense of genuine relationships. We're masters of deception, convincing ourselves that our vulnerabilities are an act of courage, when in reality, they are merely a strategic move to elicit sympathy and control from others. Deep down, we're all driven by a primal fear of rejection and abandonment, which we attempt to mitigate by manipulating others into giving us the validation and acceptance we crave. It's only when we confront the inescapable truths of our own nature that we can begin to shatter the illusions of our ego and uncover the intricate patterns of our own psychological manipulation. Thanks for watching Beneath the Mask, a critical examination of how we use attraction and vulnerability to manipulate others. I want to hear from you. Please like this video and share your own observations in the comments below about the ways in which you've seen this pattern play out. If you're looking for more honest insights into human psychology, consider subscribing to this channel for new content every week.